What does bother me is some of the people I deeply respect, their basketball credentials, their basketball history, their commitment to basketball and women's basketball, I think have really not covered themselves in glory with some of this commentary. And I'm going to read you a quote, Colin, if I may, from, again, this person might know more about about women's basketball than any person who's ever lived, and that's Gino Auriemma. Gino Auriemma was on with my pal Dan Patrick a couple months ago when the Fever were struggling. And this was the quote: "This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality in the league, and she's a rookie. This rookie class isn't even one of the best classes in the last 10 years. She's just not built for the physicality of this league. She's not quick enough to get away from the physicality." End quote. Gino, just say you're a UConn guy and you thought this was going to be Paige, and instead it's Caitlyn.
Nobody saw this coming. Not the negotiators, not the executives, not anyone who assumed they had time. For months, it had been all behind closed doors, quiet calls, shifting numbers, tentative promises never committed to paper. That's how these talks usually run: slow, calculated, controlled. Until they weren't. The moment the documents leaked, everything flipped. Not just for the league, but for everyone watching: fans who trusted the process, players who had waited patiently, networks quietly weighing their moves. And at the center of it all was a name impossible to ignore: Caitlyn Clark. The CBA negotiations were tense, heavy, not explosive. Pay structures debated, media rights contested, scheduling wrangled, concessions weighed. Leadership insisted progress was steady, but the leak told another story: hesitation, limits, fear of giving any one player too much sway. That fear was critical because the balance of power was already shifting. While the league argued with itself, the world outside moved fast, focusing not on basketball, but on her. And that's when the first era hit. Leadership, instead of adapting, doubled down: control the narrative, centralize the power, keep the spotlight inside the system. The documents reveal no malice, only an outdated mindset, oblivious to how much the world beyond the boardrooms had already changed.
Caitlyn in that class by not being prepared for it, and the fact that so many journalists across the country, institutions failed to cover this league, Like, there's just so many institutionalized failings that now the league is attempting to hurdle over.
Yeah. What do you think is the biggest thing, just as far as the product on the floor? Because a lot of people talk about physicality. A lot of people talk about the referees. I actually did a deep dive in one of my episodes talking about like who the referees are calling to, essentially, and where the W gets their referees. But as far as the product, because at the end of the day, fans are not going to stick around if it's not a good product, period.
Right.
Like, they have to be there for the basketball. And
what really gets to me is seeing people I genuinely respect, because of their basketball knowledge, their history in the game, and their dedication to women's basketball, put out commentary that falls flat. Take this, for example: Gino Auriemma, someone who might know more about women's basketball than almost anyone, was on with my friend Dan Patrick a few months back when the Fever were struggling. And here's what he said: "This kid's on the wrong team. She doesn't have the skill set to handle the physicality in the league. She's a rookie. This class isn't even one of the best in the last 10 years. She's just not built for the physicality. She's not quick enough to escape it." Gino, just admit it. You were expecting one thing, and instead, it's Caitlyn Paige making everyone rethink what's possible.
After the 5 years, right? Let's see how well y'all do in the 5 years. Then you will have something to fall back on. But yeah, and they were saying the average could be $1 million across the organization, across the league, right? If everything works out perfectly with the 5% extra on top. So, hey man, I don't know. It seems pretty good to me. Now, they did have some weird things in this improvement here. A few of them would be elimination of that grass testing, all right? That schmoke is what we call it down here in Georgia. The schmoke, okay? Now, it's crazy you would eliminate the testing, but then you would add new treatment programs for the grass or alcohol abuse. Like, what? Talk about contradicting yourself. I mean, I guess, man. But shorter disqualification periods under anti-drug program. Interesting, man. Complimentary all-star tickets for all players. Now, I thought all players get this anyway, so I don't know. Yeah, okay. And then free WNBA League Pass. Man, that's tough. That is tough, man. They can't even watch. They watching like us. That's crazy work.
Wave accounts tied to league content started dropping, and secondary projects followed with declines unmatched in scale. A concept that once promised a different future now revealed its fragility in real time. Games aired, effort stayed high, but audience engagement lagged behind projections. Insiders say the contrast was stark, one screen showing millions, another struggling to hold attention. That's when panic set in, not as noise, but as silence. Phones stopped ringing, meetings stretched on, decisions were dissected endlessly. At the head of the table, Kathy Engelberg absorbed updates that no spreadsheet could soften. Numbers don't argue, they accuse. And the verdict was clear, the audience had shifted. Then came the commentary, not official statements, not press releases, but conversations, old quotes resurrected, every tone examined. One voice kept surfacing, Gino Orama. Context matters, but timing mattered more. Comments once dismissed as routine competitive talk now carried weight against this new backdrop. Fans connected dots, sometimes unfairly, but forcefully. They didn't see her, they underestimated her, they assumed they could wait. That's how stories become symbols, and symbols are dangerous when negotiating power inside the league.
Actually, not the only place that is preparing for it. Unrivaled is also a place that is preparing for a strike, and we've heard it from other players. Like, we've heard Natasha Cloud say, if there's a strike or there's a lockout in the WNBA, everybody can go and play in Unrivaled. Which brings me to my last point on Unrivaled.
You know, I know a lot of people are kind of like hating about being a part of Unrivaled and also trying to negotiate the WNBA, but it's like, I want two things to both be successful. And literally that's how I'm looking at it. Like, I'm looking at this from a pure business standpoint and how things can be great for everyone. I think that Unrivaled, the only thing that Unrivaled is showing is positive. When you show players on social media or in games or wherever the case may be, people watch.
Right.
So we can't not have that for our summer season in the WNBA.
And this is where a lot of people from the beginning have been calling it a conflict of interest, because it clearly is. And I'm not saying that Breanna Stewart has bad intentions. I don't actually think that she does. But she's saying here, I want two things to both be successful. She cannot come out here and say that she cares about the WNBA more than she cares about Unrivaled, or she cares about Unrivaled more than she does the WNBA. She wants both of them to be successful. It's kind of impossible at this point, because you have the WNBA who...
Calls were made, reviews ordered. What if we revisit the old framework? One asked. What if we sweeten it? Another suggested. A reset, whispered, not public, quietly, because timing had already betrayed the intent. Fans saw it as pleading. Players sensed panic. And the drifting audience. They saw proof the system had misread the room. The real blow didn't come from a statement or a tweet. It came from the numbers. Every appearance outside the league spotlight magnified the contrast. Every NBC clip widened the gap. Every quiet weekend game with low engagement made the reality impossible to ignore. Insiders say the hardest truth hit late, after the calls, the drafts, the what ifs. If she had wanted the old deal, it would have been done already. Now, it was too late.
Later this season, Cordell confirmed that she is scheduled to appear as an analyst for the Knicks vs. Thunder on March 29th. He also added that he hopes to see more of Clark moving forward, signaling that the door is open for additional appearances. While no expanded role has been formally announced, the comments suggested genuine interest rather than casual praise, i.e., they're not just blowing smoke up her ass. A growing presence in sports media. Clark's success as an analyst fits into a bigger vision for NBC Sports as it looks ahead to its NBA coverage alongside the NFL, Olympics, and streaming platforms. Cordell referenced Clark as an example of how elite athletes can enhance broadcasts with authentic insight. For Clark, it is another step in building a multifaceted career. For NBC, it is a reminder that her voice goes well beyond the box score. Caitlyn Clark nailed it, according to the executives, in her NBC speaking analyst role.
And they're not the only ones preparing. Unrivaled is also gearing up for a strike, and players have spoken openly about it. Natasha Cloud, for example, said, if there's a strike or lockout in the WNBA, everyone can play in Unrivaled. That brings me to my final point on Unrivaled. I know some criticize being part of it while negotiating the WNBA, but I genuinely want both to succeed. Looking purely from a business perspective, there's a lot of potential for everyone. Unrivaled's biggest strength is visibility. Showing players on social media or in games draws attention, and that can't be ignored for the WNBA summer season. Many have called this a conflict of interest, and while I don't think Breanna Stewart has bad intentions, the reality is complicated. She wants both Unrivaled and the WNBA to thrive, but at this point, it's nearly impossible to prioritize both equally. The WNBA has always been cautious. Leverage isn't something you announce openly. This moment hit like a nightmare for those in charge, not because anyone was attacked, but because control slipped away. The documents didn't just reveal terms, they revealed fear of losing relevance, fear of being bypassed, fear that the future wouldn't wait for permission. And the cruelest part, none of it needed a confrontation, a press war, or angry interviews. Just a platform, an audience, and a decision made ahead of everyone else. By the time the league tried to regain its footing, the comparison was already clear. NBC numbers on one side, lagging engagement on the other, and the undeniable truth that talent plus timing outpaces process every time. It ends not with a bang, but a shift where the old deal looks desperate, the old rules feel optional, and the future no longer waits at the door. When the audience rallies behind one person, the system realizes too late what should have been done earlier.